What about the ZTO-OUSs?
Zombie takeouts of unusual size? I don't think they exist. Hello and welcome to Zombie Takeout, the B-movie and cult movie show. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And without any further ado, on to this week's movie, which is from 1987, The Princess Bride. This is a tribute to William Goldman, who wrote the novel and the screenplay. He passed away while we were on Thanksgiving break, but for Bodo, I wanted to get to Demolition Man first. So
we had to get to Demolition Man last week.
Yeah. And speaking of Bodo and Demolition Man, there was a tweet from like 3 weeks ago that I completely forgot about. He reminded me of it. He said, like 3 weeks ago, I tweeted that Demolition Man and The Matrix was the same movie. Everyone was happy until Neo and John Spartan ruins it. The question, should you rather be happy singing commercials or knowing the truth about it all? Would you rather be stupid and happy or knowledgeable and depressed?
Well, I mean, there's one side I have now, I always wonder what the other side would be like, though. I'll let you figure out which is which.
Yeah. Stupid and happy. I mean, that's kind of me when I'm drunk, as you may remember. But that's always kind of tempting, but I couldn't do it. I'd have to know what was up.
Yeah, like even when I'm giving blood, I'm always like, I gotta see what's coming out, kind of thing. Yeah.
All right, so finally on to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by actors, writers, directors, special effects artists, makeup artists, storyboard artists, Foley artists, set designers, stunt doubles, editors, grips, gaffers, best boys, extras, and everyone else involved with making a movie. When making a comedy, do it just like this.
And it's amazing because how many films had Reiner actually made before this? I mean, other than Spinal Tap and, you know.
And this is our second Rob Reiner film.
Yeah.
And the last one was Spinal Tap, the only double 6.
That's true. It went up to 6.
Yeah. One more.
Also brought to you by Miracle Max, your perfect Oscar host.
If he wears the makeup.
Yeah, only if he wears the makeup. Who the fuck wants to see Billy Crystal do it again without that? Yeah. And of course, you get Carol Kane to co-host with them.
Oh, that would be there. Okay, forget the makeup. They can just do it. Get the two of them together.
No, they've got to do the makeup. They've got to do the makeup, both of them. All right, so we begin with a lady who they never say how she's wealthy or whatever. Or actually, they say she's a commoner, don't they? Yet she somehow has a servant, so she's not that common. But she's just not royalty.
Princess Buttercup.
Yes.
Actually, we started with the grandson, didn't we?
Oh, right. You want to go there. So we begin with a grandfather coming in to tell his punk-ass grandson a bedtime story. Of course, the kid doesn't really want it, but he manages to get sucked into the story.
I kept waiting for Daniel Stern.
Why did they make... why did they put age makeup on Peter Falk, though?
Because he was probably only 50 at the time.
He was 60.
60? Okay, well, that would have worked, yeah.
But they put this fake mustache on him, and I just didn't get any of that.
Fred Savage was the grandson, Peter Falk was the grandfather.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it would be very weird if it was the other way around.
Hence the Daniel Stern joke.
Yeah, should have had the Daniel Stern. But anyway, with the real story here, we have they say she's a commoner, but she has herself a servant
and a title.
Yes, and then she winds up getting the title princess later. But that's the big deal, is that he's going to marry a commoner.
Mm-hmm. And they refer to her as Princess Buttercup from the beginning. She's a princess, hence the stable boy. But yet she's apparently a commoner when Prince Humperdinck says he's going to marry her.
Yeah. That's only when she turns into a princess, really. She's not really a princess.
Well, no, I think she's referred to as Princess Buttercup from the beginning, though.
But she wouldn't be. Unless she's, unless she's a daughter of a nobleman of some sort, or king.
Right, which is what I figured. Or a nobleman, someone rich. Anyway.
But anyway, they fall in love, but he cannot stay and has to go out into the world to make a living. Um, I guess this is kind of a year after Peter Gabriel's "Don't Give Up," which is kind of about that.
Okay.
But he gets lost at sea. Well, they specifically say that a pirate took his ship and doesn't take prisoners,
Mhm.
so he's assumed dead at sea. And that is when Buttercup goes to become a princess.
By
She's
marrying Prince Engelbert, I mean Humperdinck. Had to be where they got the name from.
you gotta release me. This anyway, please release me. This is 2 episodes before the break, guys. So
Yeah.
bear with us.
Senioritis is kicking in.
Yes. So the he goes to marry her because she's of course single or widower. I don't know. She
Well, they
never
weren't
married the other
married. They
guy.
were just in love, and he
Yeah,
died, so she was
he was
available.
going to make a fortune so they could marry.
And then I think he's the king, so whether or not she was attached wouldn't have really mattered.
True, true.
He just took what he wanted.
Yeah, which most kings did.
Mhm.
But well, a curve is thrown in the plan because she's kidnapped by a very devious,
The
intelligent.
best group of kidnappers ever.
Yes, the best group of kidnappers ever. The smartest, the biggest, and the
The best with the sword.
and the best with the sword. Right. Only it all goes to shit when this masked pirate comes back and is chasing them down. I guess he'd been waiting in the wings the entire time, actually.
Well, he was following them on the water
Yeah.
and still looking back.
And so he manages to best all 3 of them at their own games,
Mhm.
which is saying something because one's a great sword fighter, one is
One is
just
Andre the Giant.
one is Andre the Giant. And of course, the Battle of Wits, which you thought everybody knows this movie because of him.
Yeah. I
But
expected him to have a much bigger part because it's been years since I've seen this movie.
but even though I've seen this movie, I haven't seen the first maybe 10, 15 minutes in a long time.
Uh-huh.
But to know that he's only in it, and of course I'm saying Wallace Shawn
Of
or
course.
Vizzini, um, he's only in it for 34 minutes. He's only in it for the first half hour of the movie.
But yet his tagline, we both came up with for a title.
Of course, inconceivable is
And
just
and a line in reference to that in the movie is one of the best known quotes and one of my favorite quotes. Almost was one of my learned. I might change it.
right.
An Ego's line in reference to that
You
is.
keep saying that word. I don't think you know what it means.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah.
One of the best known quotes, and yet Wallace Shawn is only in the movie for like a half hour.
But he's just that good.
Yeah.
And so of course, this pirate that has been tailing them is, of course, the stable boy from the beginning who.
Well, he's the Dread Pirate Roberts, who is this legendary pirate who's been, pillaging for like 20
who
years.
really knows marketing. That was another possible sponsor I was thinking of, because he is just great at marketing his terrorism.
Mhm.
And just hands off a franchise whenever he feels like retiring.
Yeah, there's been like 5 Dread Pirate Roberts, and when they want to retire, they find an apprentice and hand the franchise off to him.
Get a new crew. He pretends he's the first mate and, calls him,
Right.
so they all believe that it's really him, and then off he goes to retirement. So he's there to take back his Buttercup. They're chasing them down in the.
I'm holding back so many Sam Cooke references.
In the swamp that with the flames and everything that coming out. I forgot the exact name. It was a very on the nose name for the swamp.
The Fire Swamp. Or
The Fire
swamp.
Swamp.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes. And then but then they're caught and he has to give her back. Well, actually she wants his life spared in return to come back to marry him. Of course the king or the prince at this time uh, goes back on his word and throws him into the pit of despair. Dilly dilly. Um, what?
Hmm.
To torture him and until he's dead. But of course, that's not going to hold him back. And you have
Well,
the surviving kidnappers there to rescue him, or actually
actually, literally resurrect him.
bring him back from the dead from a guy who knows a thing or two about bringing people back from the dead. And they have fun storming the castle, and hilarity ensues.
Hmm. And like I said, it had been years since I saw the movie. So I completely forgot about that framing story with the grandson and grandfather.
Oh, yeah.
I completely forgot that was a thing. No, we were going on about Walshawn. I will say he kind of seemed like he was overacting to me at first,
Of
but it, it,
course.
it grew on me after, like,
That was the
before
genius
he
of it,
died,
though.
it was growing on me.
And that whole speech he gives about,
The Australia
picking,
thing was brilliant.
or no, about picking, the right, which is the right poison
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah,
why. That whole thing is just so fucking
yeah.
brilliant. Like, no, unless you think, I'd say you're stalling. You would think I'm stalling, but just the pacing is just so
Yeah.
good.
But before we get to that,
Yeah.
before earlier than in the movie, I loved Andre the Giant, Fezzik, climbing up the cliffs of insanity. This giant, pretty much dead straight cliff with just his arms with four people hanging on him.
He's gaining on us. I'm going to throw these people on me.
And this is not a nitpick because I'm sure it was intentional. But Inigo, of course, famously does that first um, with duel left-handed,
Yes.
but he carries his sword right-handed. I just happened to notice that. I loved the way they were chatting before they started fence dueling.
Oh, the whole thing of him climbing up the cliff and then
Mm.
helping him climb up the
Yeah,
cliff.
it was just this gentlemanly duel between these two dedicated swordsmen. I loved it.
Giving him a rest before they fight, because he doesn't want to beat him because he's tired from climbing up the
Mhm.
cliff.
Incidentally, Carrie Elways and Mandy Patinkin learned to fence both left and right-handed for the film, and performed those scenes themselves, aside from the big gymnastic moves, which
I
were
mean,
obviously a stunt double.
if you haven't if you haven't had that in Dungeons and Dragons where you say, I've got a confession to make,
Yeah,
I'm not left-handed.
right.
You haven't played the game.
They were trained by fencing instructors Bob Anderson and Peter Diamond, both of whom had worked on the Star Wars trilogy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the two big flips were obviously stunt doubles, but that just made it funnier.
Yeah.
Also, although Inigo never asks why Roberts is pursuing them.
No, no, he doesn't. That is very odd.
But yeah, I mean, shout out to the fight choreography because in a comedy you don't expect that, but it was really good fight choreography done by the actual actors for the most part. Um, Also
Oh,
loved the banter during the wrestling match between I call him Roberts, it's Roberts or Wesley. Wesley. Um,
yeah.
Loved the banter there and the choreography in the wrestling match. He puts Andre the Giant in a sleeper hold.
Uh, just it is kind of surprising, just with the three of them, on Andre the Giant, Carrie
Mhm.
Elwes and
And Mandy
Mandy
Patinkin.
Patinkin. I mean, just they're not known for their comedic acting, and none of them really
No,
are.
no.
You know?
I wish Andre had done more.
Yeah, like that whole rhyming gag at the
Yeah,
beginning
yeah. Oh,
was
yeah.
fucking funny as hell.
I kind of wish they had carried. I mean, I have very few criticisms. Obviously, we could have just started with our ratings. I'm sure, um, but yeah, I wish they had continued the rhyming gag a bit longer.
Yeah,
My only other criticism is Christopher Guest was criminally underused in the first half of the movie.
yeah,
He's barely there. Oh,
and
by the way, Dread Pirate Roberts is a reference to the actual pirate Bartholomew Roberts, also known as Black Bart.
okay.
Um,
But Christopher Guest, it kind of feels like they switch in. Like when Wallace Shawn is out,
mhm,
then you bring in Christopher
right.
Guest, so it's
Yeah.
not like too crowded, I think. But just and Christopher Guest, the best part that he does in this whole movie is the line. It's that confrontation with Montoya,
Mhm.
where he finally delivers that line. I've probably seen that thing 500 times, and just him turning around and running away
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
still cracks me up to this day. Because you expect, him to come back or come at him or whatever,
Right.
instead of just, he just
Just
as he's
turns and
going to
runs.
die, just all right, I'm out of here.
And I feel like that gag has been referenced a lot too.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of references, this is something actually from the Simpsons that I reference periodically that I think fits Christopher Guest in this movie. Do you remember the episode where there was the gang war in their backyard?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I think I do
The
because that'd be
Italian
that kind
gang
of
and the Triad and the Yakuza all fighting in their backyard. And there's this little Japanese guy in a white suit just standing there watching. And Marge goes to drag Homer inside, and Homer says, that little guy is going to do something really cool, and I'm going to miss it. That was like Christopher Guest in the first half of this movie, because he
yeah.
was just standing there for like half of the movie, barely saying
He
a
was
word.
the henchman,
Yeah. And
He,
it's eventually when he gets something, it's going to be really good.
but that's all he had. That's all they gave him, and he made it funny as hell.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the like their reaction, just so matter of factly. Okay, I'm going to turn around and run away.
And there was no thought to it. That was the brilliance of it, because they give it to that last second. There's no hint that he's going to run.
Right. He's
It
standing
just,
there with the
yeah.
sword.
Potemkin finishes the line, and he just, on a dime, just pivots and runs full speed. Another great surprising moment. When Buttercup rolls, she I think it was when Wesley when she realizes Roberts is Wesley.
Yeah.
She had previously rolled him down a hill because she thinks he's this horrible pirate. She realizes it's Wesley, and she just rolls down the hill after him for no reason.
Yeah.
Also, the RUSs were impressively animalistic looking. I really liked that effect. The effects in this movie were really well done for 87.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're a bit sketchy. Some like
More so the movement, because they were actually guys in suits.
yeah.
The faces were a little iffy, and they weren't that big.
Right. It would be the only criticism I'd have of it, but I mean it's 87, so I'll give it a pass for that.
Yeah. Loved how matter of fact the albino was in the Pit of Despair. I don't. Mel Smith played the character. I don't know if I've seen him in anything else, but I just love how kind of conversational and matter of fact he was about torturing.
The fact that he's welcome to the pit of the pit of despair.
Yeah.
Don't think about leaving. Don't think about it.
He's just calmly talking about torturing Wesley to death.
Yeah, I had to look him up. Mel Smith.
I did too.
He's just been in British things.
Yeah.
He hasn't.
And the
Mr.
makeup,
Bean, of course.
The makeup job on him was creepy as hell.
Yeah.
And of course, I was very happy to see Inigo and Fezzik return because, like I said, it had been a while and I didn't remember that part. Now I have to wonder if the kid continually complaining about how the story has to have a happy ending was a kind of a buried criticism. There are some nice moments where it gets kind of dark.
Yeah.
And then they cut back to the grandfather saying, kind of teasing like this is the end of the story. And the kid saying, no, it has to have a happy ending. And I wonder if that was kind of a criticism of a lot of fantasy that, it has that cliche, good guys always win, happy ending.
Well, any type of fantasy story, from I guess a certain time period, yeah, the good guys had to win,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think they were maybe, or Goldman, assuming that was, in the book, was kind of mocking them a bit and, taking them to task a bit for the guaranteed happy ending.
Yeah. Tweaking it, definitely.
Exactly. And I also noticed it's a fantasy story with no magic.
You're right. Well, except for Miracle Max.
He gave him a pill. He didn't really do magic. He just gave him a pill that revived him. I mean, arguably resurrecting someone from the dead, yeah, it's magical. But it was with a pill. It wasn't like a magic spell. There's no real proper magic in the movie.
That's true.
Um,
I mean, Andre the Giant was in the wheelbarrow, and
yeah. I mean, okay, the cloak was arguably magical because it
oh
didn't
right, the
burn.
cloak.
Um, loved sneaking into the castle with a partially dead Wesley. That was just
Was
classic.
it a Holocaust cost
I think
cloak
that was
thing?
what they called it. Yeah, Holocaust cloak.
Fuck. But yeah, that is probably the most surprising thing of all was always physical comedy. And of course, people are saying, "Wait a minute, he did print Men in Tights and all that, but that was after this."
Right, right.
I mean, before this, he was most known for some, very serious historical
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the first thing
dramas.
I saw him in was, and it wasn't this. Like the
I
first thing I
mean,
became aware of him was some kind of heartthrob role.
like he did the movie Lady Jane. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
he was it was all very serious stuff.
And he hasn't really done comedy since either, aside from Men in Tights,
Men in Tights, yeah.
which was mostly done because of this. It was kind of a reference to this. Um, and I also noticed that Inigo doesn't go left-handed with the count. He goes right-handed with the count when he really wants to,
Well,
get the job done.
he wants to get his revenge.
Yeah.
Oh wait a minute, he did Hot Shots.
Okay,
I forgot about
that's
that.
okay. Maybe that was what I. Yeah, so it would have been a comedy that I
But
first
again,
saw him in.
after this, I
Yeah.
mean, everything else was.
Well, and we were thinking going into this, this was maybe a little too mainstream for us.
It definitely is.
But this is definitely a cult film. This did modestly in the box office. This was not a
Yeah.
huge hit.
I
This
mean, this is
became
a
a
movie that TBS will put on for 24 hours a day, like Christmas Story. And I watched it like, I forget how many years ago it was they did that. But yeah, I came into it like in the middle and then saw a little bit of the beginning and then,
the first time in I don't know how long I've regretted not having cable.
yeah. The,
Um,
this is on a lot.
but it's definitely a cult movie. It didn't kill in the box office. It really got its reputation as a cult movie.
It's one of those movies though that when you are flipping around
Uh-huh.
and looking for something to watch and you see this, you will most likely stay on it and watch it till the end.
Right. Yeah.
That's how many. I mean, I've seen it a lot of times that way alone.
Mhm. I think the last time I saw it was on TV back when I had cable. So, love how it gets really kind of dark toward the end. She marries the prince. Inigo is knifed by the count. Buttercup's about to kill herself, and then the ending happens. It was almost like the end of the second act, like 10 minutes before the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And the duel was, of course, we talked about the duel. That was brilliant. And Wesley's threats to the king were great. Because the king walks in, Wesley's in the bed, and Buttercup's just as Buttercup's about to kill herself, Wesley tells her that he's in the room in the bed, partially dead still.
Yeah.
King walks in and threatens to kill him, and he just completely bluffs him.
That whole that's very dark. The to the pain.
Yeah, to the pain.
Fight to the pain.
He's gonna cut off various parts of his body except his ears. He's gonna save his ears, and basically just disfigure him to the point where he will be
Conscious
ridiculed,
enough to hear.
consciously all of the ridicule and horror that he's causing people.
Dark
And
shit for a kids movie.
yeah. Well, this is not a kids movie.
Kind of is though. I mean, a lot of kids will watch this.
This is all the talk of murder and this is not a kids movie. I mean, it's framed as a kid's story in the intros, but I don't think it is see it as a kid movie. But yeah, Wesley just completely bluffs him. Loved that, and loved the kid developing an interest in kissing and the kissing scenes in the book. Because he was really, of course, he's an 11-year-old kid. He's averse to kissing scenes, of course, and a kind of romance. By the end of the movie, he's really into it. He wants to hear about that last kiss. And I doubt that was a comment on masculinity, but I would kind of like to think that it was.
Maybe.
I mean, the book came out in 1973, so.
Oh yeah,
The movie was 1987, so it seems a little early for that, but I would like to think that it was. On the sequels and remakes.
Oh God, I hope not.
No, there have not been any sequels or remakes, and there should never be.
Yeah.
However,
who could do something like
I
equivalent
don't.
to this?
Okay. If we're going there for a moment, what was that? Matthew Vaughn, I could see pulling it off. What was the one we did? The Gaiman movie, Stardust,
Stardust, yeah.
was very much influenced by Princess Bride.
Yeah.
So I could see Vaughn pulling it off with the right cast. But who do you replace them with?
Well, right.
Who is Inigo Montoya? Who is Vicini? Who is Wallace Shawn now?
Yeah, like there's nobody.
I
Nobody.
mean, Fezzik, maybe you could find a wrestler who could pull it off, but
The too many of the wrestlers are too pretty boy
yeah, you don't
polished.
have that kind of size anymore.
You don't just have,
Yeah,
Andre the fucking Giant.
right. Um, yeah,
400 pounds for noble falls.
I mean, Wesley might be the easiest to cast.
Yeah, I just saw like a fun fact for this before we reviewed just a few weeks ago was that on the set Andre the Giant let out a fart that lasted about 16 seconds or something ridiculously
Okay.
long.
Wow.
And Rob Reiner just kind of like, "Are you all right?" And his response was, "I am now, boss."
Apparently, he called everybody boss, regardless of their position,
Oh yeah.
because it put them at ease because of his size. You know, he's so huge that he just called everybody boss to kind of put them at ease and kind of even things out a little.
HBO did a wonderful documentary on his life. Yeah, it's definitely worth seeing.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are no sequels or remakes, but there is some other media. In 2008, Playroom Entertainment released The Princess Bride Storming the Castle, a board game based on the film. I'd love to try that. The Princess Bride game is a casual video game developed and published by New York game development studio Worldwide Biggies. Kind of curious about that. Gonna look into it. In late 2013, Disney Theatrical Productions announced that they would adapt a stage musical based on Princess Bride. The website was launched a couple months later. In 2016, Reiner said that the project was still in development despite roadblocks, and that Mark Shaman, Randy Newman, and John Mayer had all been approached to write songs, but had turned them down.
The only person I could see casting in this would be Wallace Shawn's part. I would give to Fred Savage.
Okay, yeah, I can see it. Yeah, he could pull it off.
But other than that, what do you do? I mean,
well, okay, Buttercup just needs to be pretty and have a decent sense of comedy.
Mandy Patinkin is the grandfather, maybe.
That would be nice. Same thing with Wesley. Actually, just needs to be pretty and have a decent sense of comedy.
His chops really impressed me. I mean, the whole being dead, half dead, just walking off.
I'm kind of trying mentally to quickly farm through the Marvel movies because I think there's somebody in there who can maybe pull off Inigo, but nobody's coming to mind. I just you need somebody who can pull it off physically and do the comedy.
But to put a serious actor like Mandy Patinkin in there, that's
I think that's maybe why it worked.
Yeah.
Like Robert Downey, if he was 20 years younger, could fit. If he was younger, Robert Downey would work. Although Patinkin wasn't young when he did this. He was probably 40-ish. I'm thinking Paul Bettany might fit in there somewhere, just, thinking about the Marvel movies.
I know who our Wallace Shawn is. It's Paul Giamatti.
Oh, God, yes. Of course. I mean, I want Giamatti and everything, but yes.
Patinkin was 35.
Okay. Pushing 40. Yeah, I don't know who
and who could imagine him young.
Who could pull off, the playing Spanish without being Spanish.
Yeah, that's the problem these days.
And also, again, with also thinking about the Marvel movies, although that's all CGI, nobody in those movies is actually huge.
Yeah.
Batista is kind of huge. Dave Batista, can't think of the character's name in the Guardians movies. He's kind of big. I don't know. He would cast as Andre, or in Andre's role as Fezzik. Anyway, on to brains.
On to brains.
This is a foregone conclusion. I think we could have started with this.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 5.
5 brains.
Yeah. It's the easy double five. So what have we learned?
We learned that life is pain, and anyone who says different is selling something.
And I learned that I'm not left-handed.
I did not know this.
And that's it for The Princess Bride. Until next time, when we'll be revealing our best and worst of the year lists. We have like 6 or 7 double fives at this point. I think this is a 6 double five. Most of the lists will be pretty close. And closing out the year with the Star Wars Holiday Special. We've put it off long enough.
Oh boy.
It's unfortunate circumstances that this was a tribute episode, but it kind of worked out nicely that we had something really good going into that piece of shit. But I'm going to tell you, I have skimmed it in preparation. Obviously, the animated section is good with Boba, but also Jefferson Starship's performance.
I've only seen bits and pieces of this. I have not sat down for the whole experience.
I think I have sat down. It's been a while. I think I watched enough to have counted to do that.
I think this will be my first tap out for zombie takeout history.
If you go into it knowing what it is, it's kind of entertaining in a so bad it's good kind of way.
True.
Just don't think it's a Star Wars thing and think of it as sacred. Know what it is going in. It's Art Carney and B. Arthur and that kind of shit.
B. Arthur.
And an incredibly beautifully cheesy performance from Jefferson Starship. Until then, of course, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are. And all right, we're good. Count it.
1, 2, 3. What about the ZTO OUSs?
Take that again. You flipped it a bit.
Oh. What about the ZTO OUS?
Sorry.
Oh.
Count it in.
1, 2, 3.